Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. We are certainly pleased to be joined with our good friend Ryan O'Halloran, news sports columnist at the Florida Times-Union, and one of my best friends. Ryan, we've been waiting a long time to start this era, and now it is here. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, apologize to the viewers. I haven't put anything on the wall yet. So in future weeks we'll probably have some artwork up, but it's good to be back talking with you. And
you need a big poster of Blake Bortles behind you.
Well, no, that's in the bedroom. Love you, Blake. Seriously. But I have a bunch of some frame stuff, including the 2017 TU football preview cover.
Yeah.
That was their last, 2022, I guess, but 2017 was their, last real playoff run. But good to be back talking with you. As I said last week, we're going to put 7 years of phone conversations into a half hour each week on this telecast.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there's been big news. James Gladstone has been very active. You tweeted out that activity, and I want to get your thoughts on that. But let's start with your opinion of Tim Patrick, big receiver that the Jaguars trade for this morning, giving up reportedly a 6th-round pick in the upcoming draft. What do you like or dislike about the move?
I mean, I like the move because when the Jaguars were linked to the Broncos earlier this week with Vele, a 6'5" receiver. Okay, that means they're poking around on bigger guys. They didn't have size at the receiver position after these final cuts. They didn't have them before the cuts. So, get Tim in here, 31 years old. This is not a long-term play. He's on an expiring contract, doesn't make a lot of money. But I covered Tim in Denver for a couple of years, and he was a rags to the riches. He was an undrafted guy who grinded, got a big contract, but then tore his ACL in 22, tore his Achilles in 23, and then rebounded with Detroit last year. It's not a number 2. Jaguars don't need a number 2. He's a number 3, can play opposite of Brian Thomas Jr. So I think it's a potentially low risk, medium to high reward move by the Jaguars.
Yeah, it was interesting in looking at it. I mean, he's got 15 career touchdown receptions, which is a pretty good number. You obviously mentioned the height. He's known as being a tremendous run blocker. And yeah, it gives them the size that they didn't have, and they didn't have to part with I believe the Saints gave up a 4th rounder to get Vele, correct? So
4th and a 6th.
Yeah. So, I mean, to give up just a 6th in this, looks like pretty good value. It seemed like before the injuries, he was he was putting up roughly 800 yards a year. I mean, it seemed like he was really coming into his own before the couple of just awful injuries. So probably if they did have some attrition, maybe could be asked to be a little bit more than just kind of a role player.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he can win in the red zone because he knows how to use that size. And, he played opposite Cortland Sutton in Denver. They signed contract extensions on the same day during the 2021 bye week. I know way too much useless information. But I was probably 20 yards from him during that practice in August of 22 when he went down in the end zone with that ACL. So he's obviously back healthy. So yeah, this isn't just a filler. This isn't just a break glass in case of emergency guy. And, I expect him to have a role in the 11 personnel. And you look at this Jaguar roster is who's going to win that jump ball in the end zone. They're not really. I don't think they're really built for that, but maybe Patrick can be one of those guys.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because like you mentioned, BTJ is 6'2", 6'3", but really everybody else is an undersized receiver. What do you think this does? This is now 6 receivers on the 53, assuming that the corresponding roster move is coming from somewhere else. Do you think it's curtains for Strigo or Green, one of those undrafted defensive linemen that made the 53?
Yeah, I would think so. And that was my first inkling yesterday when they posted that roster. And, sometimes you really like an undrafted guy, so you want to wait a day to put him on waivers because today is going to be hundreds of guys out there. Teams are going to make their moves. Let's slide him in the waivers, tonight. And so then you can sign him to that practice squad. But I think a sign of that, Hayes, will be how many practice squad guys do they sign today? If they sign 12 or 13, well, then they're not done looking. They're not done, and they're interested in bringing a couple of guys. They'll have at least one guy they'll have to release today, interested in bringing him back. But, Hayes, you brought it up on the radio and also just on our group text. This GM is not done today. I thought 3 trades and 3 waiver claims. You sort of went on the high end on the waiver claim. So it's going to be interesting to see what the mechanics are over the next 8 hours. And
you mentioned you tweeted out how active Gladstone has been. Give our audience a sense of that.
Well, it's one thing, the Jags media guy does a great job with trade history. So from 1995 to 2024, in the month of August, they made 10 trades. So basically 1 every 3 years.
Yeah,
James Gladstone's made 3 this month. So that shows you, hey, this is a guy comes from the less need school. There's nothing wrong with trading a 6th or 7th if you value a player you're getting back. And what I've liked about what James Gladstone has done this month is he's not trading players for draft picks. He needs bodies in here. This is a 4-13 team. You don't need more day 3 picks in the future. So, if you have to give away a 6 for 1 year of Tim Patrick, who may help you win a game, or Colin Saunders, a deal that I really liked because Luke Portner wasn't in their future. So, Fred Johnson, you trade him, get a pick, and you may have swung that back to Patrick. So I really like the activity because, if you're standing still in this league, you're moving backward.
Yeah, that's well said. And, again, in getting back to Patrick really quick in terms of special teams, I thought it was interesting. He played a lot as a rookie in 2018. He had 216 special team snaps as a rookie, but that was back in 2018. Really hasn't had any since. Do you think that he'll have a special teams role here, or it'll simply be, pretty much receiver only for Tim Patrick? Yeah,
I think it'll be receiver only. You mentioned 216. Well, then the last 4 years he's played a combined 21.
Yeah.
So as his role increased with the Broncos as a receiver, you obviously take him off of some teams. So they got. I'm sure they'll be able to fill it out in other ways, but you slide this guy in as a receiver only.
Well, which then makes me wonder, I wouldn't think they're keeping Trammell, which he made the initial 53, but I wouldn't think he gives you a lot with that. So, yeah, and looking at the activity for today, I think they're going to be active. I mean, I just think I was going over the Rams cut list this morning, and there's 8 players that the Rams released yesterday that Gladstone worked with, was a part of the front office when they came in. I thought the number might be higher, but it turns out it's 8. It's a couple offensive linemen, a corner, a few linebackers, a couple of running backs. So nothing that maybe lines up, but in terms of things that the Jaguars are really prioritizing, I would think, in this initial waiver claim round. But
Les, this is James. I'm going to claim all 8.
Seriously, I don't think it'll be obviously that, but we see how this guy operates. I mean, he loved De'Ami Brown coming out of the draft. De'Ami Brown puts together a good playoffs, but really did nothing for 4 years in Washington until this, a few nice playoff games, and he signs him to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Which had to just shock De'Ami Brown's agent when he got the call. Now, that may end up being a great move. I mean, he's looked good since he's been here as a Jaguar. But to me, it speaks to, this is a man that if he has a conviction about a player, I don't think that, his mentor waiving that player would throw him off the scent. And so I am curious to see if Gladstone, particularly, like I said, of the 8 guys that he was with when they brought them in LA. And again, there could be guys in this cycle that Les Snead liked, that Gladstone also liked, and that he moved off of them. But in terms of guys that James Gladstone has been in the building with, there's 8 guys there. You have to think Liam Cohen has a guy. I don't know if it's Kyle Trask, but maybe it is. But you have to think there could be a guy on Tampa's offense that Liam Cohen likes that got waived. And then obviously you got the other 29 teams, I guess, from around the league. So I do expect, whether it's trades or whether it's waivers, I think they could make 3 or 4 moves today.
Yeah, you mentioned Trammell on the special teams. I'll start there. You could waive him or release, sign a practice squad. You get 3 call-ups. so you can fill that role and then, maybe try and figure it out later. You mentioned O-line. I mean, I'll be naive here. Milam is hurt. He's missed time. Van Lannen's on the 53. He's been banged up. So, and we watched that O-line in the last couple of practices that were in full pads that we watched. A lot of mixing and matching. Let's face it, they're throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks, which is what they should do. So I wonder what the O-line depth chart's going to look like, Friday compared to what it looks like today. So I think that may be an emphasis of guys who are versatile and I think as a bonus can have played just a little bit.
Without a doubt, James Gladstone's going to meet with reporters later today. What are some things that you're hoping to get out of that availability?
Well, we need some clarity on Ranshaw. And part of my pronunciation guide, I can't even find my depth chart.
Ranshaw.
Yeah, I mean, he was placed on IR ending his season. They were allowed 2 return to play designations before the 53. Don't want to get into the weeds on that, but okay, what was the clarity on that? And is what kind of surgery, what kind of injury? So that's one thing. And one thing I want to ask James, since I haven't had a chance to ask him anything, is what do you think of Trevor Lawrence's camp? Do you feel like 16 is running and is trending in the right direction? I saw a guy who was up and down in camp. I thought he had a decent outing against New Orleans. So that's one of the things I'm interested in. But also, ideally, we get to talk to him at 4:15, and they've already been awarded their guys on waivers. That's when you really say, okay, why this guy over this guy? Why? And then also, the Colin Saunders trade. What did you like about him? So, some of the roster mechanics, and also another thing with Gladstone is, walk us through what the what the mechanics of the meetings were like. How involved was Tony Baselli, particularly on the offensive line discussions? Was there a certain player Liam Cohen prioritized either on the waiver wire or as far as a guy he wanted to keep on the 53? So a lot of different topics to cover with Gladstone later today.
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, we're seeing obviously Gladstone working the phones, making deals. Do you think a deal could be in the works? Could they be looking to move Devin Lloyd?
I mean, Devin Lloyd, it's, when you see a guy playing that late in a preseason game, the antenna goes up that either they're going to cut him or B, they're showcasing him. And I thought that with Tank Bigsby as well in the New Orleans game. I've always been, the last couple of weeks I've said, probably Lloyd does stick because you can't cast off everybody who's played in a game that you don't like or didn't acquire yourself. I think what's going to be interesting with this Jaguar team and the general manager is trade deadline. Even if the season is going well or in the middle, and definitely if it's not going well, I think there'll be a fire sale of expiring contracts because that's the time to really stock your draft cupboard. Because the more day 3 picks you got, you can package those and move up in round 4, move up in round 3. You don't have a first, so. The veteran stuff is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to talk to Devin Lloyd. It's going to be interesting to talk to Darnell Savage next week when the locker room opens. Say, where's your head at? That to me, we'll see what these guys have to say about their status.
Yeah, Savage is one that I would try and move if I was Gladstone because the safety spot, like if he can't beat out either Wingard or Murray, he needs to be somewhere else.
He would probably agree with that.
Yeah, and I would think exactly. I would think the player would want that as well. So I mean, again, you're not going to get anything of tremendous value. I think it would be that 6th, 7th round range. But Darnell Savage is a guy that at this point I would probably try and move off of if I were the Jaguars. You've got Jordan Lewis at nickel, who they love. So I don't really know where Savage helps, and he's played a lot of football. So is he going to be content to be in a reserve role, which is, what it appears like he would be. And yeah, the running back position is really interesting. I've asked Rick Ballou this, and I've asked Frank Frangie this, and it sort of has gotten not them in trouble, but people have sort of lost their minds. But it's a discussion that you have to have when the head coach says, hey, we're only going to have 3 backs active on game day between Etienne, Bigsby, Tootin, and LaQuint Allen. One of those guys is going to be down. if that's the case, if they don't make a trade today with one of those guys, who do you think would be the inactive running back?
I mean, you just look on experience and status, and I would say Allen being the undrafted guy. Obviously not Travis. Obviously not Tank. And Tootin is a draft pick who has garnered a lot of attention during camp. And you need those backup running backs to play special teams. So I thought, to me, the three thing was interesting. And just one real quick on Savage. He's played 58 special team snaps. You need backup safeties to play special teams. And
right.
And Darnell would probably tell you the same thing. He came here to play defense. He's played nearly 5,000 snaps on defense in his career. This is not what he's
still a young guy.
Yeah. So it's like, that's another thing with Gladstone is, okay, what didn't you see out of Savage, who has 60 or nearly 80 starts in his career? Why not him instead of another guy? Take us through that competition.
You mentioned the offensive line, and we'll get to watch practice tomorrow. I was actually surprised that it's like media can watch like an hour and a half, basically the whole practice tomorrow. I thought it would be like 10 minutes. But we'll get a chance to see that offensive line tomorrow at great length. Is it concerning that, we'll see what that looks like tomorrow, but you mentioned it, they've gone with a lot of combinations. Do you think there's still enough time for them to be cohesive for week one?
Yeah, I think so. And, I think tomorrow's practice, Hayes, is one of those where we can watch but can't report. But we'll be able to get a feel for that O-line group. And, if Harrison is ready to go. Okay. Is McCarty, is he ready to go? With Milam out. So I think they got their five. I mean, we'll get to me, tomorrow's practice is experiments. You're done experimenting. You have to start thinking about Carolina. You listen to coaches who talked yesterday around the league. They used yesterday's practice as an install day. So you're getting down to brass tacks a little bit. And then definitely if they practice on Labor Day, to me, that's a regular season practice. So, one thing they stressed during that scrimmage was, hey, you want to try different guys in different spots. Well, that's fine. Probably a couple weeks too late to my liking, but I think right now you have to be able to zero in on who your five are. You may not like it, but you got it. It's not a rule, but ideally against Carolina, you have to play five offensive linemen at the same time. And
that's right.
So it's time to figure out which five those are.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'll be interested in seeing tomorrow. Like, I don't want to see like shifting. It needs to be like these five for the whole time that the ones are out there, and then the next five and so forth. So hopefully they have been able to do that since the last time we were able to see them in action, because it'll have been several days. It gets you out on this, Ryan. Well, first off, tell us what you have coming up in terms of what we should be looking out for. And I know you had a chance to get with Tony Baselli, write a column about him. That was great. You wrote the Bigsby column on suggesting perhaps a trade. But in terms of Jaguar stuff, what do you have coming up in the TU?
Yeah, a couple things. One column is dropping tomorrow online. It's going to be in Sunday's preview section. Is they really are focusing on collaboration. And it may not lead to wins, but they feel like their process is better with the triumvirate of Baselli, Gladstone, and Cohen. And, I think a telling part is that they told James Gladstone when he got here, this is where the GM's office is. He goes, I'm way out of the loop on this one. So he moved his office over to personnel and analytics. Tony Baselli took the old office of the GM. And I think, it sounds great when you're 0-0, but I think there is something to be said for, inter-office synergy. So I talked about that a little bit, and, how they're, as Tony Baselli told me, he says, hey, they're going to make mistakes. They're all on the job for the first time. The key is learning from them and not repeating them. That's what this organization has been plagued by. And, a couple other things. This team could not take the ball away last year. I mean, it was pathetic. I mean, it's one of the worst seasons since the Super Bowl era started. Yeah. So I think Jordan Lewis is going to be a key with that. I mean, he has a history of taking the football away. I think he's going to be a leader. I think he's going to be a good player. So, I caught up with him last week too. And then something that non-Jaguars will be right up your angle. Does FSU have any hope?
Well, and we know the answer to that one. But I still will look forward to reading the column about it. In terms of it's a great point on Jordan Lewis, because he's made probably of the top 5 defensive plays in camp, he's authored 3 of them. So he really has shown some great anticipation and savvy out there. So I agree with you. I think he'll alone help those takeaways, dramatically rise up the board. Give us a quick thought, and then we'll get you out of here on the Panthers. Obviously, we'll talk next Wednesday for game week, but just an early thought about what you like, what you don't like with the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I don't like a lot.
Yeah.
They didn't have a great preseason, and this is year 2 of the Dave Canales era. And Bryce Young finished better than he started, and he got benched. And at that time, we thought Bryce Young in Carolina was done, just like Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. Well, we all think Anthony Richardson is done in Indianapolis. Young came back, played better down the stretch, but who are their difference makers? You could say the same thing about the Jaguars outside of Thomas and Hunter. But, by the way, real quick, that's another storyline for tomorrow. Does Travis Hunter actually practice?
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that next week. But, I mean, if you're the Jaguars, this is a game you have to win. I mean, the NFL gave this one on a silver platter. If you have any kind of good on your roster, you beat the Panthers at home in the opener. And so, I'm sure we'll dig into the Panthers a little bit next week. But the times I saw them a little bit on TV in the preseason, I wasn't running to the betting app.
Yeah, it did. It looked awful, and they gave up over 30 points a game last year, and then took a receiver in the first round of the draft. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game. But I agree with you. The league did them a big favor, the Jaguars, by having Carolina come here in the opener. Well, great stuff, Ryan, man. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to being with you every Wednesday throughout the season. So, I mean, it'll be like mid-February by the time that we wrap this up.
Our last show will be from the parade route.
Well, yeah, on the float, we'll have to set it up that we're still able to do Duval Rundown. But great stuff, man. Really enjoyed it. Excited to work with you this season and hopefully many seasons moving forward. And we'll look forward to next Wednesday. On Friday, Rick Ballou will be back with me for Duval Rundown. Again, we start right at 9:04 a.m. to get you all set for everything Jaguars. For Ryan O'Halloran, I'm Hayes Carline. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Take care.